Hey guys, welcome back to my channel on tutorials on all things business, math, and anything you may request. Today, we're going to be looking at the VLOOKUP function in Excel. So over here, I have an Excel table of 16 random names and their grades. And what I'm trying to do is figure out what their grades are. You could just go one by one and sort out on the syllabus and see what you have. But if you're a professor and you have more than 16 students, say you have 50, 100 or more, that can become tedious. So that's why we have things like the VLOOKUP function in Excel. Before we begin, you need to know that in order to use this function, you need to have a reference. That means you need to have something that you're going to be comparing to. Because we're talking about grades, I have this table right here called scores and grades, where I'm saying if you have anything from 0 to 59, you're going to get an F. 60 to 69 is a D, and so on. Now, we're going to use the VLOOKUP function, and it should sort out all these grades for us. So how does the VLOOKUP function work? So you click your cell, so we're going to start with Josh, and in the search bar, or the function type, we're going to type equals VLOOKUP. Now you notice the VLOOKUP function passes 4 arguments. The first one is the lookup value. We need to have something to compare. If we're looking for someone's grade and what they got, we need to know what their score was. So in this case, Josh got a 96, so we click Josh, and that's our lookup value. The next argument that it says is our table array. We need to compare it to something. So, because we're finding a grade, we're looking for the table of grades, where we could take that 96, see where it falls, and calculate its grade. Now, make sure that when you highlight your table array, you do not highlight the names at the top. So in here, I do not need to highlight score and grade. I only need the numbers and the grades. That's your table array. Then it says column index number. So our table is more than one row and column. That's why it's a table. And we need to know which column we're comparing it to. So when the function takes the score that we're passing, in this case 96, and puts it into the table, the computer wants to know what does it output. Does it output this column of numbers? So if we put 96, it's going to output wherever this falls, 0, 60, 70, 80, 90. Or does it want the other column with the grades? Because we're looking for grades, the second column is what we need. So we type 2, which is telling the function that take the argument, pass it into this table, and when you find a match, you copy it here. So in this case, a 96 would fall under here, and because we're looking at the second column, it's going to give out A. Accordingly, anything in the 80s will give us the B, the C, the D, and find us all the Fs. The last thing, as you see I pop up, is true or false. There's 2 cases of VLOOKUP functions. One is if you're looking for an exact match. So take this 96 for example. If I want the computer to look for a specific number, so it has to match 96, that if I find where a 96 is, I get a result. If not, I do false. Or that's what for false. So if I wanted to say find the 96, I would type false, and it would look for an exact match. But we're dealing with grades, and grades range. An A could be a 91, but an A could also be a 99, which is why we have this range of values. So that's not applicable to our case. Because we're looking for grades, and grades are in a range, we type true. Again, the difference being is false is when you want an exact match, so the number you're looking for has to match verbatim, or true if we're looking for a range. In this case, our table is ranges of grades, so we're looking for true. Now, we have our 4 arguments, the number we're comparing, the 96, this table, which is what we're referencing, 2 to tell us we're printing out the column, and true because again, we're looking for a range, not an exact match. And when we hit enter, we see Josh got an A. Now we check this, a 96 is above the 90th percentile, which according to our scale is an A. In Excel, accordingly, if we wanted to do this for all the people, we could do the same function and type it, or we could drag it down. Now, watch what happens if I just drag it down to the bottom. You see all these NAs and not applicables. Why? That's because when we first typed the function, our range right here, E2 to F6, our table, was a general cell reference, which means we were only calling it at that instance. So every time we drag down, the cells scroll down to E3, F7, and down more. What we want to do to fix this is we want this to be an absolute reference so that every single time we're referencing this table, it doesn't change. In order to do that, all we have to do is simply put a $sign in front of the numbers, so $2 and $6. And now we're always referencing this table, and it doesn't move no matter how much we slide. Now, when I hit enter and I drag down, we see that all the grades change. And to check, we see an 87 is a B, that makes sense, 65 is a D, 90 is an A, 70 is a C, and all the grades match up. And that's the VLOOKUP function. Thank you for watching.